Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakron. We're just on here right now because I just want to show you a live look at what we are watching for, an update out of the Clayton County Police Department. You can see, there's just some microphones set up and some adjustments being made, but we are awaiting an update at any moment now from authorities regarding the sexual assault case at the Rainbow House in Jonesboro that we've been reporting to you since earlier this week. I want to bring in now, we have a special guest joining us, attorney Andrew Fleischman, who is a criminal appeals attorney. Andrew, thanks so much, first of all, for making the time to be with us today.
Thanks.
So we're talking about the main suspect in this case, 25-year-old Caleb Randolph, allegedly having inappropriate contact with at least one child at Rainbow House, which of course is a center for youth. It's supposed to help troubled youth. He's accused of child molestation, sexual assault, numerous other charges. These two women who you're looking at are Executive Director Mia Chanel Kimber, who is the mother of Randolph, and Monica Jones, the program director at Rainbow House. So Mia Chanel Kimber, the executive director, Monica Jones, the program director, they're both accused of failing to report the alleged misconduct, instead trying to cover up the incident. And actually all this allegedly resulted in the victim being removed from Rainbow House based on some false allegations. So Andrew, as we prepare to hear from authorities, what are you going to be listening for?
Well, evidence, right? So we've got this case right now. What we have is sort of a bare allegation. We don't know more. There's a claim there's a false allegation that gets this child removed, but whether or not this is the case that has physical evidence, DNA evidence, recordings, the victim speaking out, or whether this was an anonymous tip, I honestly don't know. That should govern whether this case is strong or weak.
Yeah, so we want to know what's really giving rise to these charges in this case, right?
Yeah.
What's supporting them. You're a criminal appeals attorney, so you know the importance of having really solid evidence, and that if evidence is questionable in any way, then it can lead to, a conviction being overturned. What would you specifically be concerned about in this case?
Well, first off is the party to a crime liability, right? So in Georgia, if you were a party to a crime, you are fully liable, as if you did it yourself. Did you aid, abet, solicit, encourage? And here, their claim is going to be that these women are parties to the crime because they assisted in the cover-up or put this guy back in. My first question as an appeals attorney is, did they do something before to encourage, aid, or solicit this crime, or did they just cover it up? That's totally different. That's the difference between being a party to a crime, serious felony, full on, and being an accessory after the fact. And from what we know so far, I don't really know which charge would fit. As an appeals attorney, that would be my very first thought looking at this. Second major thought, they're saying that this guy is committed a sexual assault. Sexual assault typically requires supervisory capacity, so you have school teachers, coaches, things like that. Is this man in his role at the juvenile facility, does he have a supervisory role that fits those charges? I'm honestly not sure. And some cases have been overturned. For instance, in the case of like a cheerleading coach, because she was not considered to have had supervisory capacity over the student she had a sexual relationship with. So those are my first thoughts as I listen about this, what's going to be. And of course, without looking at the indictment, the formal charging document that says exactly what they're alleging and how, it's hard to know what to look for.
Yeah, and it's numerous charges against these suspects. It's the child molestation for when we're looking at 25-year-old Caleb Randolph, apart from sexual assault, statutory rape, and a few other charges. So when you see that there are numerous charges that can in some ways overlap, is that sort of, is it done to kind of present options going forward so that there are a couple of potential alternative theories that prosecutors can go with?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, there's no formal charge, so they can do whatever they want down the line. They can charge it however they want. But even one transaction could give rise to any number of these charges, and it gives a lot of options. It gives options for pleading things down later on down the line. And of course, when you go to the jury and you've got 11 charges, maybe even if they're skeptical about the evidence, they compromise and convict on one, not knowing it's going to result in a 25-year sentence with life to serve. For those reasons, there's just often a problem with these multifaceted charging documents.
Yeah, and what kind of problems are we going to be watching out for? Actually, looks like there is some activity inside of Clayton County Police Department. Just want to see. It looks like they are about to begin speaking. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Everybody good? Hey, sir, if you wouldn't mind, just one more mic check before we get going.
Mic check.
Give us a count to 10, sir. Check's in the mail.
Yeah. 10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3-2-1. We good?
Yeah.
I got to ask Leonard specifically. He asked for 2 extra minutes. We good?
I'm good, sir.
All right.
We're live.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Roberts, Chief of Police for the Clayton County Police Department, and it's tragic that we are meeting this afternoon in reference to an incident involving juveniles being victimized by individuals entrusted with their care and safety. As it relates to this particular incident, on March 14th, one of our captains was provided with an anonymous tip about sexual misconduct occurring at the Rainbow House in Jonesboro. After the whistleblower realized their reports had not been investigated, the Clayton County Police Department Criminal Investigation Division, which stands behind me, immediately initiated an investigation that resulted in 4 arrests. All of our victims are juveniles. Therefore, we will not be able to release names and locations of our victims. We would like to ask the media to please be respectful in protecting the identity and location of our victims, because there may be more that are willing to come forward. As the Chief of Police of the Clayton County Police Department, I would like to thank the Human Trafficking Unit, our entire Criminal Investigation Division, and our partners for being devoted professionals in getting justice for our victims. The following agencies have assisted with this investigation: Georgia Office of the Child Advocate, Children's Advocacy Centers for Georgia, GBI Human Exploitation Trafficking Unit, Georgia Center for Child Advocacy, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the Attorney General's Office, who will be prosecuting these allegations. Next, you will hear details from the primary detectives, Sergeant Michelle Austin, who will then open the floor for questions. Sarge.
Good afternoon. On Wednesday, March 15, 2023, the Clayton County Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit Commander received an anonymous tip in reference to sexual misconduct possibly occurring at the Rainbow House, Inc., Jonesboro, Georgia, 30236, in Clayton County, Georgia. An investigation was launched which revealed that Rainbow House, Inc., Jonesboro location employee 25-year-old Caleb Randolph, who is also the son of Facility Executive Director 55-year-old Mia Chanel Kimber, had engaged in inappropriate sexual conduct with at least one child who had been placed at the facility. Additionally, the investigation revealed that Mia Kimber, 53-year-old Monica Jones, who is the program director of Child Advocacy Center, both had direct knowledge of the misconduct and failed to report misconduct to law enforcement officials. Both Kimber and Monica Jones failed to take corrective action and instead engaged in a cover-up scheme which resulted in the juvenile victim being removed from the facility based on false allegations. Caleb Randolph was initially fired and rehired a short time later, only 1.5 weeks later, and since has been actively employed with Rainbow House, Inc., where he had been allowed to interact with juveniles at the facility until he was arrested by Clayton County Police Department during the early morning hours of Thursday, March 16, 2023. The investigation is ongoing and additional arrests may be forthcoming as detectives continue to investigate this misconduct of the Rainbow House, Inc. Jonesboro location. As the investigation continued, Lieutenant Marbury and I continued to unveil more disturbing behavior by adults that were supposed to protect the juveniles. We found that their behavior was criminal, greed, unprofessional, negligent, and not in the best interest of the juveniles. It was like watching a Netflix series unfold right before our eyes. When this investigation initially started, one victim was identified. 2 more victims have been identified, with more potential victims coming forward. We have conducted numerous interviews during the last 10 days. One of the interviews conducted was that of Felicia Campbell. Felicia Campbell is a 35-year-old female, a manager at the Rainbow House, Inc. in Jonesboro, and an employee of the Clayton County school system. During Ms. Campbell's interview, she advised she didn't have knowledge of sexual misconduct. The investigation revealed Ms. Campbell had files containing incident reports made by both staff members and juveniles. The files were kept in Ms. Campbell's office and with her signature on all of them. Suspects that are in custody and their charges. Caleb Xavier Randolph was arrested on March 16, 2023 on the following charges: child molestation, statutory rape, sexual assault of a person over whom have supervisory or disciplinary authority over, sexual assault by facility employee agent volunteer. Mia Chanel Kimber was arrested on March 18, 2023. Monica Shanora Jones was arrested on March 20, 2023. They both were arrested on the following charges: child molestation, a party to a crime; statutory rape, a party to a crime; sexual assault of a person over whom have supervisory, disciplinary authority over, a party to a crime; sexual assault by facility employee agent volunteer, a party to a crime; sexual exploitation, party to a crime; mandated reporter, failed to mandate. Felicia Marie Campbell was arrested on March 23, 2023 at Lovejoy High School for the following charges: mandated reporter, failure to mandate. We ask that all media respect the privacy and protection of the victim involved in this case, our victims. Please do not release any names or the location of this incident. We will now take any questions you may have.
I have a question. How long, to your best knowledge, has this been going on, allegedly been happening?
Allegedly, these allegations started in August and went through to our investigating starting in March. Yes.
August of this year?
August of 2022.
Excuse me, yes.
Sergeant, I'm with Fox 5. You said that it was like watching a Netflix series unfold before our eyes.
Yes, sir.
I mean, is this a case, is this a bad, like, one of the worst cases you ever seen? Obviously, these people were entrusted with the care of these kids, and this happened. I mean, is this one of your, how long you've been in law enforcement, is this one of the worst cases you've seen, or can you describe to us?
I would say this is one of the second worst cases I've seen and one of the first worst cases I've seen involving juveniles, but this is not the worst case that I've seen, no.
Question. Hi, I'm with the agency. I've spoken to somebody who said they had made a complaint to a hotline and sent complaint as well to several state officials about abuse going on at the facility back in like November and December. Are you aware of this complaint? And if so, do you know if anything was done at that time?
We are currently investigating many allegations and complaints made to various resources. The complaints were not made directly to Clayton County Police Department, so we are, a little behind, but we are investigating any complaints that have been made toward the Rainbow House since last year. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know at what point Caleb was terminated and then started working back at the facility?
Caleb was terminated at some point during the month of January this year and was terminated for a week and a half, and then he was reemployed at the facility after that.
Do you know what he was terminated for originally in January?
Originally in January, he was terminated for violating a Rainbow House policy.
You don't know what policy that was?
I do, but it would jeopardize my case at this time.
Can you provide any more details as to why they removed the juvenile? You said it was on false allegations.
So the juvenile that was removed under the pretense to our human trafficking unit that contact had been made from an outside suspect with the juvenile at the Rainbow House, and they were asked that we remove the child from the Rainbow House because we felt the Rainbow House children that were placed there would be in jeopardy, or basically that the safety had been compromised.
Someone came forward. How important is that for the community when you hear something, say something? We always say that, but in this instance.
It's very important for the community to come forward. In this situation, we are finding that although some people did come forward, they did not come forward directly to the police department. Clayton County Police Department was not aware of any allegations prior to our investigation that started in March. So it is very important to involve our partners and to come forward and advise of these reports of allegations. However, we cannot control what other agencies did or did not do. We can only take it from today.
You said that there are other victims in this case. Do you have the ages of those victims?
We cannot release that at this time.
Karen, is this place still in operation, still open at this point, or are there still kids there?
At this time, we've been advised that kids will be relocated to other safe locations. I do not know offhand. I haven't had contact this morning. We've been a bit busy, so I do not know if any kids are at that location right now, but I know the staff that we are investigating is no longer employed by that location. So the kids were safe the last we knew at the location.
Or would you say that this place is not a safe place for these kids?
I would feel that the employees that were involved in the situation were unsafe to be around children, not necessarily that the facility itself was unsafe.
Do you have any sense that there will be just a review of broader protocols? I know a lot of this is outside of your control and it wasn't given to the police department, but for example, like if it is true that someone did call the child abuse hotline back in November and there was a breakdown in communication there, I mean, is there going to be any kind of, if that is found to be true, any kind of...
I can't speak on behalf of other agencies. What I will say is that we are diligently working with those agencies to see if there was a breakdown in communication, and if so, how that will be fixed for the future.
We received a statement from the attorney representing Felicia Campbell. That attorney said in the statement that they had already set up to meet with officers and that the officers just did not wait 2 more hours and instead arrested her at the school, and that she had information that she was going to share with the officers, meaning like she was cooperating with police. Is there any truth to that statement?
That is a negative. With any situation where we have suspects, they are allowed the opportunity to come in and speak with us. We did allow that opportunity to her, and the arrest warrants were obtained the day before we spoke with the lawyer.
Thank you, Sergeant. In closing, there may be additional arrests forthcoming and the investigation is ongoing. I will say this, any mandated reporter that failed to uphold their duty to these victims will be held accountable. And I ask that any pertinent information to this investigation be submitted to our agency at phone number 770-603-5266. We thank you for your time.
Chief, quickly, just to clarify, so you guys do not want any video of the address where Rainbow House says it is?
Thank you so much for helping. Thank you, team.
All right, so we have just been listening live to that update from Clayton County Police regarding the investigation into alleged sex assault at the Rainbow House, which is a facility meant to help youth. The breaking new development that we've learned just moments ago is that 2 more victims have now been identified in the Rainbow House sex assault case. Remember that earlier this week, we reported to you that a one-time employee of Rainbow House, 25-year-old Caleb Randolph, had been charged with sexual assault and child molestation for some conduct involving at least 1 victim. Well, just minutes ago, we learned from authorities that there have been 2 more victims now identified in this case. I want to bring in our guest legal analyst joining us this afternoon. Pardon me, I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulty here. But we have a guest legal analyst joining us this afternoon, Andrew Fleischman. I know you're a criminal appeals attorney. What's your reaction?
Well, first off, that there's more evidence now than there was before, right? You got more than one victim. That means you've got multiple people whose testimony might be found credible. But also, there's a child exploitation count that typically refers to the production of child pornography in Georgia. Stuff like photographs, stuff like video. If there's that, then there probably will be some relatively hard physical evidence to establish that something improper occurred.
So I noticed that authorities were also calling for anyone to come forward with any new information that might help with the investigation. Why do you think that is?
My guess is that if they assumed that if this happened in August, it was probably an ongoing problem. And it's quite possible. There are some questions there about whether other agencies had reacted or learned about this, that other kids had talked about this before the police got involved. And that's sort of an ongoing problem in Georgia. I mean, we don't really talk about it much, but our juvenile justice system generally has high rates of child sexual assault. A BOP study from 2013 found the rates anywhere between 10 to 30% of kids in juvenile custody are assaulted by staff sexually.
So sad.
Often not believed. And Georgia had the #1 facility in the country in Paulding County up until 2014.
When
it
you
was
say
shut down.
#1 for child sex assault.
Yes, the number
so
one.
So sad. Why? What do you think's going on? What's the problem?
Well, you've got places with kids who have no parental figures or family to protect them. They're in someone else's power. They don't know who to go to if something happens. And all those things combined with their basic lack of credibility to authorities means that even if they do say something, they're often not believed. Oftentimes, police believe that someone is saying something to get out of trouble. They are lying or malingering because they don't like the situation that they're in. And that presumption often leads to no follow-up and no attempt to find further evidence.
Oh, it's really tragic. So as we just listen to these new developments, anything else that you think we should keep in mind as we watch this story, continue to develop?
Again, they really didn't answer my questions about whether or not these women were parties to this crime or whether they had just helped cover it up after the fact. I'd be very curious about that. That's a huge sentencing exposure difference. It's the difference between a 5-year sentence maximum for accessory and life in prison if these women were actually assisting in some way with the crime. And for that reason, that's really what I'd be listening out for as I find out more.
And as we talk about the sentencing, the main suspect here is this man, 25-year-old Caleb Randolph. Talk a little bit about the potential sentences that he could face for these crimes of if he's convicted of child molestation, sexual assault, statutory rape.
I mean, his exposure on child molestation is up to 20 years in prison. The statutory rape exposure is even more still. And of course, if they find that it was non-consensual sex, if it was regular rape, then it's 25 years in prison minimum with no possibility of parole. So exposure is great. And of course, those could be run consecutively if you've got more than one victim. So odds are, if he's convicted of more than one count, he probably will not be released. Especially given that Georgia's parole board has gotten stingier and stingier about giving out parole, especially to sex offenders.
Got it. Any final thoughts on this?
We just often put kids in this state in dangerous situations, and it's great that we're holding the people accountable who committed the crime, but we still aren't doing anything to talk about the judges who send kids there, the DFACS workers who aren't investigating the case, and all the other parts of the system that made this possible. We have fixed the fox in the hen house, but we haven't closed the door, and that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Attorney Andrew Fleischman, for sharing your insight and analysis and helping us just understand what all this means. Of course, we're going to continue to follow these breaking developments surrounding the investigation and the fallout from the alleged sexual assault at Rainbow House in Jonesboro in Clayton County. We're going to keep breaking this down, and we hope you join us also for our news starting at 3 p.m. over our traditional broadcasts. And if you haven't already, please do download our app, because there we're going to be sharing all the updates that are relevant on this story and all your top stories and your forecasts as well. Have a great day.